need to be,
Sorry, I forgot to.
we're going to be talking about the preparation of score and parts and for a rehearsal. And so I just want to make sure that we're all up to speed so that we can save time in rehearsal. So one of the things I will be talking about before Mary Kate starts talking is, yes, and I'll be talking about how to prepare so you save time, so you get maximum benefits, so we aren't wasting time in rehearsal doing things that are going to take time. Now, Iggy is here, and Stephen and Tim have all been involved before in this program, and so is Nathan. You know what you need to do, so you're going to be helping start this list. I want to have all the extra work and preparation that you need to do for us preparing a score. And Tim, do you have any suggestions on things that we need to watch out for in the score, not the parts? I think that's what's that mean?
Like letters or numbers, like indicate certain parts of the piece.
So what I think is you can either choose an alphabetical letter or a Arabic number, like rehearsal number 1, number 2, number 3. In whatever software you're using, you're going to have an option to choose. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to take A with the box around it. I like to do alphabets. Oh yes, Iggy. Dynamics. Oh my God. Please, thank you.
Tempo.
Yes. Tempo. What else?
Key signature.
What? Ooh, I'll just do this. 3 sharps, just to let you know.
A major.
What?
A major.
Well, and what else? We have dynamics. Dynamics. Yes. Tempo. Oh, articulation. Thank you. Articulations.
Other markings.
Like what sorts of things?
Like technique test or like
Techniques, okay. Technical things. Also expression. Expression. So.
And
You know,
togetherness.
one of the things performers love is a little bit of an explanation so that they know what the character of the piece. So when you're spending time in the first reading or the first rehearsal, full rehearsal, you got 20 minutes during our rehearsal today, having a little bit like a jaguar. So it may not sound like anything you could do musical, but when you're expressing something and trying to make it sound like something, this is really helpful information. We put that in italics or in regular lettering. Like a jaguar, yeah. Tim, Steven.
Another thing being just general consistency. I'd say like general consistency. It's not necessarily like a specific thing. It's just making sure that, I guess, all similar things look the same. Like for example, if you have a bunch of parts like doubling up together, you'd make sure they all have the same articulation. Otherwise,
This be italics or regular text? That's my question. When you do expression.
oh, is that your question?
That was my question.
I'm sorry, italics,
Focusing what I was at.
italics,
So is it italics?
yes.
No, regular
No?
text. So when you say like a jaguar, regular text. If you say molto espressivo, that's italics. Yes. If it's Italian or if it's a foreign language, italicized. If it's English, not. Yeah.
Okay. I also think it's important to note tempo changes. So like accelerandos and retardandos are important to follow.
Tempo changes. Now, we're going to talk about how this is expressed in parts in a second, but we're just talking now about scores. But yes, you're right. Anything else? What about double bars? Why do we do double bars?
when there's
Put your microphone on.
when there's like a change in a section or like a change in a key signature or tempo.
Okay, double bars, and I'm putting that like that. That's what that means. I would say, here's one of the things I put down brackets here. And on a score, it's really important to have brackets like this on families of instruments. So you have 2 strings and percussion and 2 keyboards, or a percussion and keyboard. So this is about the families. I'm just saying right here, families. And the idea is that it's easier to grasp things when you've got a bracket around instruments. It's easier to read the score as a conductor. it's also easier for you to remember, oh, I have to make sure I'm doing each of the families. So if you, for example, put a pianissimo on the strings and you want the brass to be blaring, you can make sure, oh, it's all the brass going and all the strings. That's treating the families of the orchestra or in your score. But I don't think anybody here is going to be doing scores for a large ensemble. So oftentimes it's just a chamber ensemble. So why would you put brackets? William, what are your instruments in your piece?
Piano, violin, and cello.
Piano, violin, cello. Now, are there two instruments out of those three that are together?
Not really.
Yes, there are. Two string instruments.
Oh, yeah.
So you put a bracket. Now, the question is what kind of bracket? And I would put, you can use the kind that has little curvy lines on it or square brackets. Either one will work.
Like this one?
I can't quite, yes, like that one, like that one. So ones that are square or the ones that are more cursive, yes. Iggy. Thank you.
Talking about bar lines, I guess that also means repeats and covering if you're gonna do them.
Say it again, I didn't catch it.
Repeats and covering if you're gonna do them or
What's that
not.
mean, covering?
Just like going over and making sure that we're gonna repeat.
This is about rehearsing, and she'll be talking about how to put that together. So this is about how to save time in notation, and so that you are not explaining things. We have some certain road tested rules about what stuff they have here. We have articulations, we have dynamics, we have tempi changes, we have sections, we have rehearsal numbers. Do we need measure numbers? Yes. I think I'm gonna do measure numbers because if you had a long time to spend on a rehearsal, there's never enough time for rehearsal, by the way. They did not invent enough time. So a rehearsal is really about how to economize as a composer to prepare the materials that you're passing out to everybody. There are no questions. You know what feeling I'm supposed to play because there's espressivo is not explaining anything. Espressivo, like a jaguar, explains something. Dryly, short. Even if it's notated with the articulation, very short. You would say something like that. Okay, I know. Is different than did. Make just every little thing. Now, I put for those folks who are here at JCI in River Falls, I have the George Crumb scores down in the green room on the basement. I would look at the notation on those scores, incredibly precise, detailed expressions. Yes, Iggy, do you want to say something, and Mike?
Can I try to play Macrocosmos?
Good luck with that.
Okay.
I think that would be awesome. And that score is the part as well. So the thing with George Crumb's music is that the score is the part because it's awfully hard to coordinate all of the players. So you can see a Crumb performance where they've got these huge boards against music stands and they've got pinned each of the pages and they're just looking, and you almost have to memorize the part. What's really interesting about the psychology of it, it's so far away, you learn it and all you're using is like a memory device to say, oh yeah, I need to do that. And then I need to do that, and I need to do that. So it's a really interesting approach, but the detailed information in those scores is ridiculous, really impressive. So I would recommend if you have a chance to online to look at George Crumb scores. It's all by hand, all of the notation is by hand, and also it's incredibly detailed. So how all of this is espressivo, all the articulation of expression, if it's italicized, if it's printed, it's all by hand. He organized things by family and techniques. And I'm just gonna say techniques are like Tim, you mentioned techniques, like what technical information, what sorts of things?
Like, well, like, if you're playing the violin or string instrument, what should you use with the bow? Like, or cello, then we want to go back to ordinario or natural.
Right? Not ordinario is what you mean, not natural.
Well, what?
When you say arco, that's ordinario. And pizzicato is pizzicato. And then all the other kinds of things, you could play spiccato, you could write that. And ordinario is how you would normally play. That's the ultimate. I'm gonna abbreviate that. Pizzicato and arco are the two choices. That's all, these are all being put into the Google Doc that is going to be shared with you and with everybody at the end of this session. So this is my very close and good colleague, Mary Kate, is putting all of the things we're talking about on a Google Doc and not just looking at my scrawling paper, handwriting.
There's a lot of stuff going on.
Yep,
You
absolutely.
learn how to type quick in
So now
college.
here's the tricky part. This is the score stuff that you've got going on. Now you have to do parts. And to save time, you want to make all of the stuff in the score appear in the parts, which means you have to proofread. I'm putting that at the top of the list. Proofread. And that means comparing what you have in the score, which you've spent so much time putting in all of this extra stuff to make sure it appears not by default, Stephen, but that you actually proofread the part, Stephen. You read the part, Stephen. I want to make sure that you're not just saying, oh, this MuseScore does all of that for me. No, it doesn't. It may, it might not. You need to check every part. Please say it on the microphone and look that direction, because I can't hear that when you're talking.
I was just saying, I guess, let me rephrase that. I do pay attention, I do check. It was just that last time MuseScore basically got it right on the money and I didn't have to do anything.
But you can proofread then. That's what I'm asking. Make sure you don't let the software do the work for you. You have to do the work. So how many parts you've got? You have to look at every single part, not just one part and say, oh, well, all the other parts are going to be right. Because you're going to extract parts from the score, and that's one of the functions on this software. On MuseScore, on Finale, on Sibelius, and Dorigo, all of those have functions about extract parts, and then you say, oh, I've extracted the parts, I'm done. No, you've just started. You've created documents for each of those instruments. Now you have to go through each of those parts to make sure that it complies and expresses what your intention was on that individual part. We just did orchestration as composition. That was a relatively easy thing. They just did it by hand. But then they had to take each part and put all of that stuff in. And the computer does a lot of it, but don't be lazy. Look at your parts and make that change in the parts. So all of these things that are in the score have to be expressed. Is there anything that is in the parts that are additional piece of information? I'm gonna suggest divisi. When you have divisi parts, and divisi part is when you've got two cellos. And in the score, it looks like, you know, you got one system, one staff paper, and there's two cello parts moving more or less in rhythmic unison, or even not. Let's say there's two different, there's stems up for the first cello and stems down for the second cello. You don't want to create a part, usually, you don't want to create a part that just has that same notation from the score. You want to create two staffs on a divisi part. So divisi will be different in the parts than it is in the score. And the reason is the score has so many lines to read. You want to make that as easy to do to read. And so you basically put divisi parts on the same staff. Flutes are examples, clarinets, oboes, bassoons, especially woodwinds, and trumpets and trombones. That all of the parts stems up for the high part, stems down for the low part. And if you have a very complicated individual line for each of those parts, and they're going up and they're crossing each other, then you have to have a separate line in the score. So that divisi, when you're doing divisi on the parts, you want to make it as much, break out the divisi into two lines, two staff lines. What else could we add to the parts that not in the score? I'm having a hard time coming up with something.
Individual instruction, like percussion things, like what different balance is.
Was that in the
Good
score?
No, it would be.
And here you brought up a really great opportunity. Thank you for bringing this up. I forgot about it. If you have percussion, or if you have special performance instructions, there, you should do a performance instruction at the very beginning. It's a Word document or a text document at the beginning of your score that's explained, oh yeah, the violinist stands up and walks backstage and plays the second half of the piece in the back room. So that you don't just put that in the part, you put that in the instructions. So when somebody opens the score, cracks it open, says, oh crap, we don't have a backstage area. What are we gonna well, what if we have the violinist walk back into the hall and they stand at the back of the room? Well, do we have to have two stands, one for them on the stage and one backstage, back of the room? Yes, you do. So there are things that you're going to help the conductor, the people who are producing your piece, know that they're going to have to do special arrangements, special thought that then just everybody sit down and we're going to play your piece. Yes, Iggy, go ahead, Mike.
The next one for parts would be cues of the different instruments.
Oh, wonderful. Cues. You can read my handwriting, you're lucky. I have medicine that I prescribe that is better writing than that. Cues are absolutely fabulous, especially long stretches of time where there's no notes and you have rehearsal B is over here and 26 measures go by and you're not playing and you have no idea if you're counting it right. So having 2 or 3 measures before and putting cues in, thank you for remembering. That's a great suggestion. A very good suggestion about cues. Stephen, do you have any suggestions about parts that you've produced that need to have additional information?
I know this is very specific for me because I made a backing track. But one of the things I felt like I needed to do to make sure everyone was on the same page was parts where where it was mostly just the backing track playing, I indicated as to what was going on. So for example, there's 2 bars in my song where there's just a drum fill, and I put in big bold text on every single part, drum fill. And right now I'm actually working on a part where there's very few things going on. Like the piano just hits a note, no other instruments play except for the backing track. And I wrote toms in background so people know what's going on.
I love you. This is fabulous idea, Stephen, especially in your piece, but this is true. It's the same thing that Iggy was just suggesting, is having cues in there, but sometimes when you don't know what's going on, find what's critical for the player. So you have to be, as the composer and the arranger, the copyist, you need to make sure that the right thing is in that cue, not just, oh, the bass is going boom. And then I come in the next measure. I want to have the thing that's present at the foreground so I can pick up, oh yeah. This is that percussion thing. That's a brilliant idea. Thank you for the addition to that. And Vedant and Nathan, I want to ask your advice on parts that you put together. Or you can think of something that goes in the part that's not in the score that helps the player do a better job of your piece. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, I mean, I never really use like actual scores with sheet music and whatever. I mostly work off of recordings and like performance notes. But something that's been really useful for me in the past is, I guess what I usually do is I'll record myself playing it however well I can.
Yes.
Make some notes about important things to do in it, maybe things that I wasn't able to do myself in playing it.
Yes.
But also alongside that, because words are only so useful in music, I'll usually include like links to other songs if I want like a solo of a song that has a solo that has similar vibes to what I want.
So do you send MP3s along with your score?
I almost exclusively send MP3s.
Fantastic. I'm going to put, that's a great suggestion, because this is beyond my experience, but it makes so much more sense. I wrote a piece called Black and Blues for orchestra, and I was listening to Coltrane, and I wanted the clarinets to play like Coltrane. He never played a clarinet, by the way. And I had to get that vibe. And so I ended up sending a cassette along with the score. Yeah. And that's exactly the same idea, except you have a better idea than I did. So this is great. So for performers, it may be helpful to send along, everything's being sent along digitally everywhere, not just at live performances and also multi-tracks, individual tracks, sending a stylistic MP3 or referencing a recording. It's a great thing. I'm going to put down MP3. If that's, is that a good abbreviation? Nathan, is that a good abbreviation?
Yeah, and also another thing is a lot of the, you know, expression and, you know, style that you're playing it in.
Yeah.
If you're like writing a piece based on a poem or whatever, even if the poem's not necessary for the actual performance, send the poem.
Oh, the lyrics in the poem.
Yeah, it can
Great.
give an idea of.
That's a great idea, and it's literally the equivalent. Literally, you notice how I used the word. That was not ironic. That was intentional. It's like sending along expressions or in special instructions on top of just the notes. You say like a jaguar. It's sending along the poem or the lyric. You're getting a sense of it. Do you think it makes a special sense to put the lyrics that's going along at that moment when if it's a song, for example, that you put the lyrics above the score so that you can see that information and that maybe you play it slightly differently?
Yeah, totally.
So that's, I'm gonna say, so if I'm setting a song, typically into a piano and voice, I've got the lyrics right there on my notes. But if I'm doing a multi-track recording and all I can see is the notes and there's no lyric, I would put parentheses around it and I would italicize or say lyric or something like, or put something in the performance notes that says the lyrics appear above the staff, and it's always above, never below. Put the lyrics above the staff as a help in how do you perform the piece. And I'm just saying lyrics in general, but that's exactly that's a great practice. Hey, Vedant, do you have any did you have any more, Nathan? Any more suggestions, Nathan?
No, that's all I got.
Okay, Vedant, do you have any suggestions?
Are we talking about, sorry, are we talking about solo pieces or pieces with multiple parts?
Multiple parts. We've already talked about all the things we need to do for scores that have, you have to prepare the score with all the things we just talked about. This is about how we add extra information for the parts for a piece we already have a score for, but we're helping the performer and saving time, and not only in the recording studio, but alive in rehearsal. We're going to talk about rehearsing in just about 2 seconds. But is there any other suggestions you might have done that were helpful to informing a performer on a multi-track or in a rehearsal that gives them more information than just what appeared in the score?
I would send the performer a full score, their part and a full score beforehand, so that they get an idea of what's going on around, like, so they can practice privately before the rehearsal, but still have an idea of what the other people are playing.
I think that's a great idea. Thank you. That, I mean, that I don't want to make it sound like, yeah, that's good. No, that's really critical idea. And I keep forgetting to do that in my own instance. And so thank you for bringing that up. It's a great practice. Now I'm going to turn this over to Mary Kate. Now, if you have any other ideas, please add them now or as on the chat. I'm going to be adding comments on the chat on this document. Now we're going to talk about rehearsaling, how to prepare for and run a rehearsal. And Mary Kate's going to talk about that.
Are you taking notes on here?
I am.
Okay. All right, so based on your experience, either here at camp or from other rehearsals you've been in, what are some things to keep in mind?
Microphone.
Pieces with multiple instruments should have, they should all be there and ready when you start the rehearsal.
Say it again.
Pieces, you should have like all the instruments there, if you can.
Oh, in place.
keep track of your music because it's sometimes people might not print them out in time and you might have to use an old version, or you might lose it and not be able to practice some really difficult piece. So it's really important to have your music.
Going along with that, the first word I wrote down was punctuality. Okay, so that I wrote that down not only for performers, but also for you yourself, planning ahead of time. So that means not waiting till the last minute to print your scores. Because sometimes other people are doing that same thing, thinking, okay, what can I do ahead of time to make this run as smoothly as I can? Okay, have you guys heard the phrase, if you're early, you're on time, if you're on time, you're late, if you're late, you're dead?
Oh, did, okay.
I've had to talk to my students at Newman about that a lot this year.
My
Say
part
that same thing.
says that if you're late, you're stupid.
You're late, you're
You're
stupid.
and deaf.
I say it's unforgivable. Okay,
And then,
microphone?
oh, yeah.
Take notes of things to do after rehearsal
Oh,
that you learned during rehearsal.
Okay, I'm gonna add to that, so during rehearsal, after rehearsal, also before rehearsal. So coming into rehearsal with a plan of, these are the bullet points of what I wanna hear. Last night for Iggy's, it was, I wanna run through letter A, then I wanna run through letter B, then we're gonna jump to movement 2, I wanna hear this, this, and this. Okay, as composers, we're good at making things up on the spot. That's not a good rehearsal plan, because then it's gonna be more chaotic. Okay, William.
During the rehearsal, it's not a good idea to just like keep doing run throughs at full tempo. Oh, yeah, that's true.
say that again.
Like, not, don't do too many run throughs at full tempo.
So I'm writing down rehearse, not just run through. Okay, so for Steven's piece last night, he came in with a backing track that was at 100 instead of 142. Okay, because it's really fast, it's technical. We're not gonna be able to sight read that well, that fast the first go. Okay, so it really helped that he slowed it down, because then it gave us a chance to work together to sight read and make things gel as players ahead of time before we tried to worry about tempo. What else? What about when people show up? What are some things you can do?
Hand them their music and tell them where to sit.
Okay,
Distribute parts?
so knowing where people go, having parts ready to go. What about if people, does somebody else have something?
Making sure they know what they're doing, like they also know the rehearsal plan.
Oh, share the plan.
Yeah, okay, so for example, every day for my rehearsals at school, I make a slideshow, which is basically my lesson plan. So I project it up on the board, and theoretically, the kids are supposed to read it, so they have their music in order, they know exactly what we're doing. A lot of them read the meme of the day or mosey around, but it's fine. But
Theme of the day,
yeah,
wonderful.
Mhm.
yeah, it usually causes distractions, but I think it's funny. Okay, what else? You guys notice that a lot of times people are taking their sweet time to get into rehearsals. They're talking, but we only have 15 or 20 minutes. And to make that as efficient as you can, you have to corral them. Okay, so being not assertive, but coming in with a presence of, we don't have time to talk right now. We have to get these things done, get to your seat. And again, having that plan of knowing where people go. If you just say Tim is talking to Steven at the start of rehearsal, which is very likely. If you go up to them and say, okay, this is where you guys need to go. This is an instant way without being rude of, come on, let's go, let's get moving. Just saying, you need to move to your spot here. That's a more polite way to do it.
And I think, is this microphone on? I can't tell. Can you hear? Am I muted? No, I'm not muted. It's one of the things, it's important you're building a team while you're doing this. So being rude to people and telling them in generalities, get your places, people. Saying, I didn't know if you know this, you're gonna be sitting over here. You're gonna be sitting over there. Tim, could you come over there? Iggy, you're gonna be over here by the piano. Getting people to where they tell me what I need to do. Telling me to sit down. I don't know where I'm going. So being very specific about to individuals, you can start hurting a whole bunch of people if you get the leaders to the places. Like I will speak to Stephen. Stephen, you're not playing, you're playing piano. Don't wander around. I need you over here right now. If that, for example, and your piece, you're playing trumpet. I need you to sit at your trumpet place. He's the composer. I'm the amanuensis. I need to help the composer get this thing organized. Now, I'm not taking you personally. I'm just saying in general, if the composer's excited, there's lots of people coming around. My piece is gonna be, they're anxious and they're nervous. An amanuensis can take a role at that very moment and say, you know, you're the composer. I want you over here next to the conductor. Or whatever the composer's location, have a plan. As an amanuensis, you can save time and stress. The composer's stressing out already. This is maybe the first time they've ever had a piece with 4 people playing a piece of theirs. Help them. Look out for them. You got their back.
Okay, so I want to go back to building a team. There's a quote that I heard when I was in college that really stuck with me. It's the best musicians are good people. Okay, so that, and people like to feel respected. So just think about how you feel if somebody just comes up to you and is like, get in your spot versus, hey, I need you to get in your spot. Sometimes you do need to be a little bit more firm if people aren't listening, if you say it multiple times, okay, but treating people with respect, and you guys know that, but, and then building, finding your leaders of the amanuensis and the conductor. The most efficient way to run an organization or a team is having those leaders and giving them those jobs, because then, like Randall was talking about, that takes stress off your plate. Just delegating and letting people take over and trusting that they're gonna do a good job will go a long way.
If you've heard the term limited TW, we use this system in all the time during JCI and the studio. Limited TW stands for LTD TW. Limited is abbreviated LTD. Let them do the work. That's just think in terms of, I don't have to do everything. I want to delegate. I'm starting giving people jobs. They take responsibility on your behalf to get things moving along quickly. And then right away, they are respected and needed. They have a role to play and not just, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I need you to help me do the following things. And they immediately start doing those things. It's really helpful. Limited TW.
An example, last night, William, when you didn't know what was going on with Big On Ski, what did I tell you? Go to Eric, because he had an answer, because he had been communicating with Big On. And I knew that would just get solved without me having to worry about it, because I had a rehearsal to get to.
And I have people talk to you all the time. They come up to me. I don't want to know the answer. Let her do the work. And then guess what she does? She lets you guys do the work. That is how that's why we're so cohesive as a group, as a group, as a body of people. We are each holding each other accountable and needing each other and having a role. That's really helpful. Are there any things else? And now it is almost 11. We got 6 minutes, I think. 6 minutes. Does anybody have any ideas or suggestions? Nathan and Vedant, you guys both run recordings online. I know that you depend on other people doing this, especially rehearsals, but also recording sessions. Are there any tips that you have that might be helpful for us to put things together?
Well, a tip for
Hold on a second. I'm trying to get more. Okay, speak up.
a tip for people who are just doing live performances: record your rehearsals. Record.
Oh, dude, nice note. Record the rehearsal. Oh man,
And you can
it's a
listen
great
back and see
note.
if there's
Why-
anything that you
Why do
you
you do
say
that?
that?
Yeah.
yeah, you can listen back, see if there's anything you want to change about the song, about the way you're playing it.
And you know, the great thing about recording a rehearsal, you weren't paying attention to everything that was said. And when you can hear the rehearsal, when you know there's a little break and everybody's resetting themselves, somebody can say something that you didn't hear, and it's absolutely critical to the next time you get together. Absolutely. You know, the idea of the amanuensis may be something, I don't know if you've ever done this at Mason City, but in Newman, it may be helpful to have a student who's not playing something. You assign them in the role of the amanuensis and listen, and the set of ears,
I do.
just, that's, there you go. And then just looking for balance is a major issue. That's a great point. All right, because I just made it. Third set of ears. Not just the performers, but not just the conductor, but somebody else. Vedant, do you have any suggestions about recording sessions? No, you're good? I think the idea of a click track is oftentimes a foreign thing for people to hear, that especially classical players, and they've got a drill bit going into their ear. Tick, 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 tick. Do you have any clues or any practices that you've used to make that a better, an easier experience for people? No? What about you? What about you, Nathan? Nathan, you have anything? Nathan?
No, that's all that's all
Okay, you got. I would say one thing with recordings, distant recording, meaning everybody's either pre-recorded tracks or they're playing along with a DAW track. One of the things that I would suggest is what Stephen is doing back there, and he doesn't even know he's doing it. He does it by a natural. He has one ear that he's listening to the room and one ear he's listening to the recording. And so removing one ear and having it open so that you can hear yourself, you can hear the room, and you can hear what's going on in the room. And then the other one, you're listening to what's being either spoken to you from the control room, or you're listening to what's going on musically, so that you're playing with it. Having one ear open to the room is really a fantastic practice for the performers. I think the other thing I would like to suggest is, if you're recording, you've done all the stuff, you've done the parts, you've done the score, you've done the MP3s, you've given them stylistic ideas, you've given expressions in your score. If you are going to be doing multi-track recording, you've got tracks laid down and you're laying down another track in the room. I think being calm is a huge advantage. Speaking relatively little and explaining things slowly and clearly, and repeat it, and then give an instruction, and then let people set up, tell them what the expectation is, and then move forward. This is true for conductors, and it's true for recording engineers, or the person in the control room, is set up expectations. We're going to start at letter E. 2 beats before, I'm going to give you 2 clicks before you start at letter E, and we'll start here in just a second. Stand by. Okay. Click, click, and they're off to the race. If you do that in a practice and you set that practice up early, then it's second nature. You don't have to think about it. And you do that either in a live situation or in a control situation. You're going to get better results from your performers. They hear you have a predictable language, you set predictable expectations, and you're going to get a better result from people.
Can I
Yeah.
elaborate off
Yeah.
of that? And when I was in college, what we talked about is, for example, we were talking about conductors. We talked about how the conductor is basically the temperature and control in that environment. So if the environment feels anxious or
Hot.
tense or hot, your job is to cool it down to get that homeostasis, that maintain that healthy environment. And actually, Tim, you did that last night when I was conducting. I don't even know if you realized, but I was in anxiety mode, and Tim was just like, I want to do a double check to make sure that we're all focused. That helped me a lot.
That's going in the rehearsal plan for tonight.
That actually helped me a lot. And I'm human too. Conductors are human too. Sometimes it comes from another person too. So
You guys are awesome. Do you realize that many of the things that we talked about, you already do? You're already doing these things automatically. And what we're doing is articulating this, not for the people who are here, but also to reinforce your best practices now and add a few more to your already good list. You can pick up some tips from this document. It'll be very helpful in the future. We're done. Thank you very much. Great, thank you. The link to the percussion thing. What's that? Oh, it's on the daily schedule. So when,